G'day everyone, and welcome to this week's Video Confidence Connect with me, your host, the Video Confidence Coach. Thank you for your patience this morning. I was a little bit running late due to some family stuff, but we are here and I'm here for you. Thank you so much again for all of those who were ready for last week, and unfortunately it was a public holiday and had to do some family errands. It's been a very family-centric quarter for me personally. So I thank you so much for your patience during that time. Let's get started with acknowledging the country before we get into today's live stream. Are we all in frame? My hair's a bit big today. We all in frame? Beautiful. I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians on the lands on which I conduct my business. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and I stand with the traditional custodians on the lands and working towards a more equal future. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people continue to face discrimination and disadvantage due to our country's colonial past. I stand with them in their fight against injustice. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. And I thank everyone who is joining us today on the live stream. We are definitely hitting the summer weather here in my neck of the woods. Yes, I am aware that it is October and summer is technically starts in December, but down this way, of course, realistically, there's 7 seasons. And we're at the moment where everything kind of hits you at once. The heat just kind of, last week it was 17, 18 max, and now it's okay, we're doing 25, and I'm oh great, I'm already at my limit. We're not ready for summer. I am not a summer girly, so for those of my clients who are, I tip my hat off to you. Have a wonderful time. I'm just gonna stay indoors where the heat is manageable. But of course, I should stop blathering on. I want to welcome everyone to today's Video Confidence Connect. For those who do not know, it is a weekly live stream that I hold from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And for those who are in Australia, throughout the various states, daylight savings is coming up on Sunday, so we'll be going forward an hour. So we're losing an hour. I have to do the math there. So just so you know, because it will affect all of us, and it will definitely affect me and my ability to keep on time for at least the next 2 to 3 weeks. So here we are. So before everything gets worse, we'll be all right. This week at the Video Confidence Coach, last week we held the Geelong Podcasters event on a public holiday, which of course, when I first originally booked it, I didn't realize it. It was a public holiday for my state of Victoria for the grand final, of which neither of us were in, so nobody cared. Of course, they did care. Football is the national sport. AFL, specifically, Aussie Rules Football, is the national sport down here, and it does have a tendency of impacting things. I worked with the AFL for a fair few years, worked in local football. I don't care for it. A job is a job. But I commend all of those who won the grand final and those who lost. I commiserate. You'll get them next year. But digressing. The Geelong Podcasters event went really well. Of course, we had myself and a nice, beautiful person that I met, and we essentially went to the cafe and it was closed, even though I was informed and checked multiple times ahead of time that the cafe wouldn't be closed. I was affirmed by 3 different people. No, it's open. We're open. We're open. I'm okay, cool. I got there and it was closed. I'm oh, that's okay. That's fine. It's all right. I did see about 15 people in the 10 or 15 minutes that I was there waiting for my colleague to come along that didn't realize it was closed either. So I don't think it was just a me thing, but that's all right. So we just had a beautiful time. We walked down the street, went around the corner to the Asian convenience store, got ourselves some melon soda, and went down the waterfront where there was lots of lovely people. It was a beautiful day. So we had a lovely time sitting there in the shade talking about podcasting. And of course, as always, all of those donations from those events go straight to the Wadawurrung Co-op our way to help support the First Nations of the region that we live in. This is the first week of the month, so we are currently on the 4th of October. So for anyone who's watching us in the replay, it is about 10 past 10 on the 4th of October. And the first week of every month, I'm not sure about your business, but for mine, it is grind week. So everything happens now, has to happen this week, and whew, it is a beautiful time. And I just realized I forgot to update the title, and I apologize if I confused anyone there. We do get this from time to time where I just accidentally forget to update things, and I'm busy trying to make things work for our favor as opposed to trying to get things absolutely perfect. All right, I've updated that now for us. So coming up for myself and for those who are in the local Geelong space, I might see you at the upcoming events that we have. We have the Harwood Andrews breakfast, which will be Wednesday next week. So if any of those who are part of the Geelong Chamber, I'll see you there. Look forward to seeing you then. And we also have the Geelong Chamber October After 5, which is somewhere, I should check, but it will be happening I don't think it's next week, I think it's happening the week after. So again, if you are a Geelong Chamber member, I look forward to hearing you then. And I have another slot for a networking event this week. So feel free to let me know if there's any virtual events or any virtual networking events that you are hosting, or maybe you are attending and you would like us to come along and maybe have a chat. Feel free to comment below, and I'd be interested to learn more about networking opportunities that you have on offer in Australia. I do international networking events, but as you can imagine, the time zones are a little interesting. But here we're getting into the meat of what we're talking about today. So, of course, today I have got two podcast topics that I would love to chat with you about. And again, if you are watching on the replay or you're watching us live, feel free to comment any of your questions in the chat and we'll make sure to answer them during today's session, because this is an hour for you, not just for me to create marketing materials, but as an opportunity to reach out to you and talk to you. So if there's anything that you want to discuss about personal branding, about marketing, about video confidence, or just video marketing in general, we can have a nice chat about it. So this week I've gotten two questions from one from a past client of mine and one from a prospective lead that I'm having a chat with regarding my mentoring services. And what they asked, I got two questions. The first question that we got asked was, how do you keep this all in your head? So they were specifically referring to, I was discussing as we were having a virtual chat, and they mentioned something. I think they had mentioned an event and they weren't entirely sure. Hey, we met in an event a really long time ago. I don't really know what it is. So I go over to my notes, my fairly detailed notes. I like to call it my second mind. And I go in there, I type in her name, and she pops up. She has 3 registers in my little, it's almost like a CRM, but it's more a note-taking software. And I could tell, like, hey, we've got the one that the event is happening today, so I've got her name there. I've also got her name in the one that we met in about 4 months ago, and the one that we met back in 2020. And I mentioned to her, oh, we met this time and we met this time. And her head almost looked like it exploded with her cat on her lap, of course. And she was very surprised. And of course, by the time that we had talked about this, we were in what is known as a breakout room in Zoom, where you're pulled away from the main group in a Zoom virtual setting. And honestly, we only had like 5 minutes, so we were going to chat. And her main question for me was, how do you keep all of this in your head? And the truth is, I don't. I have multiple tools and multiple systems that I've developed over time of running a business, arguably 15 years now, that I've been running a business, and I've used these tools to be able to build up my collections of knowledge so that I don't have to think. The way that I heard it from, I think this honestly was a YouTube video like 5 years ago or what have you, thinking about the brain as a working organ, because that's what it is doing. It's doing the stuff in the background, keeping you breathing, keeping the blood flowing, like doing all its things. But when it comes to remembering things, my memory isn't that great. I do my best to improve it, but there's only so much that I can do genetically, and also chronic pain-wise does impact my memory over time. So what I do is I use that instinct or habit to be able to, quote unquote, keep everything in my head. And I write it down. I used to write it down in a paper diary, and then, as many people, and especially some of my mentees can attest to this, you just forget it because it's in a book somewhere, and you can't find it. So I moved all of my notes into a digital format. So I keep everything in what is known as a Notion. So this is an online tool. Think of it as your own little Wikipedia. You're able to create this little system however you like. Of course, mine is hella messy and very confusing, which is why I use the search function to its best ability. So when it comes to thinking about your brain, trying to instill habits that make things easier for you in the long run, even though it might be a pain in the moment. So say, for example, I was at this virtual networking event and met this woman. And what I do at my virtual networking events, and also in my in-person events, but to a lesser degree because you're in person, it's kind of harder to do this, is I take notes. I make sure that I write down their names to the best of my abilities and make sure I have details on them, just like, hey, we talked about this and we talked about that. Check on them in a month or two when their kids are back in school. And again, this is not me trying to keep tabs on people. This is more of a method I do just to make sure that, hey, we talked about this a month ago. I want to bring it up to you, not necessarily as a lead prospect, but as a thoughtful gesture, because we had a very insightful discussion. And I know that you were very, in the moment, interested in actioning it. Again, not necessarily as a lead thing, but it can be helpful as a lead thing. There's lots of clients at the moment that I have been, especially over the past 5 years, who I just met at networking events, virtual and in person, and I followed up when I said I would follow up. And then they come back to me. They refer people to me. They hadn't worked with me, but they refer people to me. And that is something that when you are trying to build a network, just helps you grow, helps you become more well-known, but also helps you become more, trusted in the networks that you wish to grow in, because you are seen to show up, but you're also doing the work. You're actually reaching out. And say, for example, I'd say specifically over the past 2 weeks, every day I have seen someone out in the wild. And when I say out in the wild, I mean I've seen their name pop up in like an awards listing, or for example, one of my past leads had got an MC gig at a very prestigious event. And I sent them an email and said, congratulations on the great event. That's well done on you. I know this is part of your big goal, and I'm so glad this step is, so big for you. I look forward to see what more you can do. Now, I'm not expecting a response from this. I'm not even expecting a thanks or anything like that. Just so, me wanting to give goodwill to people that I have connected with in my network. Now, of course, this has all been tangentially related to what I was discussing just before. But the reason that I say this is because your brain is working so hard just to do everything else that it's got to do in your life. To be able to take the burden off your brain and keep that information and knowledge, especially timely knowledge, in somewhere where you will look when the time is right. So say, for example, if something is related to time or calendars, I put it in my calendar. I actively put it in places where I know, hey, when the time comes, I'm going to see it, I'll action it. Usually it's a quick email or a message or something really, really simple like that. And that improves my network and trust. But also, I don't need to think about it. I don't need to remember stuff. And I use my Notion system, like I said, my internal second mind wiki, if you will. And this allows me to put a lot of details regarding whatever I talked about or did with this networking person, for example. And then I don't have to think about it again. It's in there, it's in the cloud. I can search it up when I need to. And if I would like, I haven't really used any of these services, but if I needed to, I could easily use the AI feature and go, hey, where does, show me the responses of where this person comes up and give me a detailed outlook on where we've met in the past. Done. And if I wanted to do that in the future, sure. For now, not so much. So the next question before we begin, and I realized, we're doing pretty well today. The next question that I had today reached out by a potential lead of mine who is very overwhelmed. They've recently finished a finished a career, but they had finished up at a fairly prestigious job that they had held for the past 3 years, and they're ready to move on, but they weren't entirely sure how or what they were going to do. They have a personal brand somewhat, but that's more of an organic personal brand that they've built in over time in their industry. So they came to me, we had a 15-minute discussion, and of course this is an obligation-free discussion of just generally what we've talked about. She gave me some of her details ahead of time so I could do a little bit of research into what she was doing. She is particularly in fintech, which is financial technology. So think about banks, yes, but there's also, supers, loan managers, mortgage brokers, all that realm of people. There is definitely financial technologies in those spaces. And like, for example, she doesn't necessarily work in the financial space, but she works with the technology that in turn works in that fintech space. Again, I digress. And the question that she had for me was, I want to reach out on my own. So of course she had finished her job and she's in a pretty decent financial position where realistically she could take the next 2 or 3 years off before moving on to another position. And she asked me about growing her personal brand. Where do I start? Because she wants to take the knowledge that she has gained in her industry over these past